Now, so I came back to the director and said, what are the key elements of a new IRCWD? First of all, we have to have a group of people who work exclusively on problems in developing countries. You know, at that time, people from Eawag, they just did how I call helicopter consulting. They flew in, puff, looked around, gave good advice, got out again, and that was it. In good intention, but that doesn't work if you don't know the real situation. Said main focus should be on sanitation. Many people worked in water supply. Sanitation was the very dirty, neglected brother of water and sanitation. Still, it is today a little bit. So what it also meant that we have to work and interdisciplinary, but it was for me very important. And what it actually means, outsourcing, collaboration with other institutions. Of course, we were at Eawag, we had sanitary engineering, we had environmental sciences, but we need to work with people with other expertise, especially in tropical health, epidemiology, and especially also with social scientists. Thematically focused, so we always said we have to be focused thematically. We just always choose one theme, and I will come back and explain to you what I mean with that. For each of these groups, we work on one theme for a certain time period, but we do geographically wide. It's, you know, in development cooperation, it's usually such that people focus on different countries. We did just the other way around. Why did we do that? Because we knew there are good approaches in India. Would they fit also in Bangladesh or in Zimbabwe? So I think learning south-south for us was very important. So I think that was one of the important things as well that I suggested. I also suggested that we really should, because we were always a very small group, we should do much close collaboration with partners in developing countries. You know, what I also learned that it was really sad how weak the research capacity was in developing countries. So we wanted to strengthen the research capacity just by doing research together. Then close interaction, collaboration with funding and implementing agencies, and active in research, consulting and teaching. Of course, main focus on research. Consulting was always very important for us to keep in touch with the real problems. And I could have a whole hour talk about our interesting consulting things. But I think I took that from the principle of Eawag, that all consulting should not compete actually with the private sector, but it should always be a learning. It should have a research component and learning for us. Teaching, several times we were actually thinking if we should have a course on water supply and sanitation for people in developing countries, and we always said no, mainly because of language reasons, and there were other VEDEC or IHE who had other courses. But we were involved in teaching from the beginning, but the focus was actually teaching to people in Switzerland. For instance, we were involved at ETH, engineering at ETH, at NADEL, and so on from the beginning to sensitize people about problems in developing countries. So networking was always very important. I spent a lot of doing networking with NGOs, with multi-bilateral development agencies and research institutions, and I think still today, I think this is important for Sandec, and Sandec is also profiting from the big network that we were building up in early times. Now let me come to some of the first research projects that we did in these first couple of years. One was the risk of groundwater pollution by on-site sanitation. You know, there was a big discussion at that time. The conventional engineer, they said, on-site sanitation, forget it. That's just dangerous. You are just polluting the groundwater. And there was no scientific evidence if that is the fact or that is not the fact. So we did this work with a hydrogeologist, Stephen Foster, and there were some WHO guidelines that you have to have a separation between a latrine and a borehole, 20 meters, period, minimum 20 meters. Did not take care of what kind of soil it is, what kind of groundwater situation. So we did this study, and we were able to come up with sort of an algorithm how to do this. Then we published, we presented, and in one of the presentations, people from India came to me and said, "Thank you very, very much, but that doesn't help us at all." I said, "Why?" "Well, we have to know, does it have to be 2 meters or 5 meters? If we do it 20 meters or 15 meters, forget it." Because you have to imagine, they had these plots. On one side they had a hand pump. On the other side of the plot there was the latrine. And then the neighbor had maybe the hand pump next to the latrine. So the question was, it 2 meters or 5 meters? What is real? So then we came up with these field research in West Bengal, Kerala, and Bangladesh, and actually we said, okay, why don't we make around the pit a sand envelope and study what is now the travel of the pathogens if we have this sand envelope. So it's a field research on the effectiveness of sand envelope on the pollution travel from latrines, and we could find out that if we have a good sandy material around, it really helped a lot. Then we did some entomological studies of on-site sanitation systems in Botswana and Tanzania. Peter Morgan, many of you know him. He actually did very interesting work, developed this VIP latrine in Zimbabwe. At that time, that was just when Rhodesia was still banned because of the apartheid policy. So there were interesting development done in Zimbabwe, and I think we learned a lot. But so we did entomological studies on the assess of effectiveness of this ventilation pipe, what is happening actually to the insect breeding, because people say, when you have these pits, the insects are coming out, they are sitting down, and so we did some work on that. And also Peter Hawkins, at that time, he was one of my first consultants. He did research on the flow in this tube, and we actually found, at that time people said you have to paint this black so that it has a chimney, and we actually found out it's not the black, it's much more important the wind which goes over. Anyway, just sort of that you get a flavor for what kind of projects we did. Now this picture makes me now very sad, because I just learned that Pierce Cross, this is Pierce Cross, he died a few days ago. And Pierce Cross, I was looking for sociologists who are interested in sanitation. And it was extremely difficult. Nobody, not only engineers, but also, they don't want to work with shit. This is just not the way to do it. And so he was actually one of the very, very few. And he did for us this review of sociocultural aspects of local sanitation in developing countries, looking at factors which inhibit usage of latrines and so on and so on. And now one of the important figures in this report, if you look at it, is, and this is sort of a symbol, toilet design needs to take account of user preferences. Of course, this picture was then misused by some of my dear colleagues. and now I can laugh about it, but I didn't think it was always very funny when they called me the fecal Khomeini. That was the time of Iran revolution. Well, today I take it as a compliment, basically. But at that time, and as I said in the beginning, I told you in the beginning, if we would have give a talk about sanitation, there were maybe a few people coming, but never this crowd. I think Martin can talk could talk about that. Anyway, but I also had my satisfactions, I must say. You know, when I gave sometimes a talk, I think it was in India, and then people came afterwards to me and said, they heard about this organization Eawag, which is also in near Zurich. Is actually Eawag part of Sandec? And I said, no, it's quite the other way around. But it showed me that we are on the right track. Okay. And then an important, you know, when I came back from Stanford, actually, I felt anaerobic processes are very promising because very little sludge production, and I was very impressed that anaerobic processes are very, you know, we had actually anaerobic filters. We could sit it there, let it sit, and after a year, we feeded it again, and it worked. So I thought that's the way we probably have to go. So we did then, and David Stuckey joined me then for a short time. We did a review on the integrity of anaerobic digestion, because I felt this is probably the way to go. And the other thing we did, and some of you recognize this kind of picture, actually we did anaerobic process. We did research anaerobic processes long time before Borda then picked it up and now uses in this system. Because my idea was actually, you know, if we have latrines, we have the removal of fecal material, then we always knew that solid grey water is the big issue. So my idea was maybe we can have latrine and we can treat grey water in such kind of a system and this discharge it directly to the urban drain. So this was done, and it was done quite successfully. Another project, you know, one picture I took home from Dar es Salaam when I was Dar es Salaam, pit emptying by hand, really appalling. So actually we then decided to do some evaluation of the problem of pit emptying, how this stuff looks like. And then we did some experiments with different kind of pit emptying systems. Here even hand one, then more sophisticated one. Duncan Mara, the people who know him. So we actually wanted to try out what is the effectiveness, or how strong has to be the vacuum for different distances and for different kind of material. Anyway, I don't go into detail, but we also had some really shocking moments because one of these machines, which were basically all you know, trial machines, this here, an English firm who came up with this machine, and this is not smoke, but this is shit. You know, they had a very, very smart device to keep it was a big fan, but they had a nice device to keep the sludge going into the fan, and they're like, buff! And so we were standing around, and this was all this shit. Anyway, some of us had to then recover, as you see here. Okay, then 1982. So I was joined by Martin. One you recognize because he basically looks like today, isn't it? Well, the other one changed a little bit, still looks very young, but changed his lifestyle, his hairstyle a little bit, probably also the lifestyle. Anyway. Okay, so let's go to the work that they did. Now, Martin Wegerlin, let's start with him. Of course, he is very well known as Mr. Sodis. You all know him as Mr. Sodis. But Martin had a life before Sodis. So actually, he worked on the treatment of surface water by horizontal flow roughing filters followed by slow sand filter. The idea was that, you know, you have a slow sand filter, very well established, successful technology. But the problem with this technology was it didn't like at all turbid water. Then it gets blocked. So the question is, what can we put between? And actually, Martin just came back from Dar es Salaam. He was at the University of Dar es Salaam. He had an appointment there, paid by SDC. And in Dar es Salaam, he already started work on this horizontal roughing filter in the lab and in the field. So he asked Eawag if we would be interested to continue this work. And I was really excited because I felt this was really an ideal match. Why is it an ideal match? Because at that time, Markus Boller, that's how it looked at that time, so that you see him now still around. So he helped actually, because he just had finished a PhD on filtration, on contact filtration. So he was the perfect person to work together with Martin, and they then set up this lab station, a pilot station in Tüfenwies. And so this was really a big, and that's what I always in a way felt, that is exactly the way how it should work. People from Eawag with their knowledge join with people and with the problems from developing countries. So then they were able to come up with design parameters and so on and so on. And plants were built in different situations, different countries. And of course, based on that, then a lot of documentation were prepared. And at the end, in 1992, the program basically finished with a big international workshop at the Wasserversorgung in Zurich, here in Zurich. So that was the end of this project, and I would like to show you that because this is also part of our concept that we had at that time. I always felt, because we are so small and we work on one issue at a time, we have to stop at a certain time. As a research institution, we should not endlessly work on one technology and then promote this technology, but we should stop. So this then stopped basically in 1992, and then afterwards was just some consultancy.